So today's video on the Rafale has ended up having a focus on notching, given the recent update changing the mechanics of missile guidance slightly. With that in mind, first up I want to recommend you watch Catworth's recent notching guide. I've put it on screen now and I'll put a link in the description and a pinned comment. It's incredibly well put together and it should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about notching, as well as some notes on notching since the recent patch as well. For this video I've sort of split it into two parts. The first two clips are before the update, then the rest of the video will be gameplay scenarios after the update, hopefully to show you specifically what you want to be doing different now. You'll also notice in the pre-update clips I've obviously got 6 missiles rather than the 8 you can carry now. So into the gameplay now, you'll see a common issue you might be struggling with the F-15s before the last update and the Eurofighters now, is there's lots of missiles coming in at you, there's lots of people higher altitude and you don't know how to deal with it. Now the important thing is, remember they're all coming from the same direction, so here I'm just using my RWR to look at the signal strength of the missiles and wait for them to filter out, because obviously not all of these are probably going to be for me. And you're going to see now, after I finish defending these missiles, no one's pushed me yet, or not many people have. They're not focusing on specifically you, they're worrying about the whole team. And now this guy's pushed within 20 kilometers, so it's a good range from my Meeker now, he's not aware of me. Now I see a MiG-29 or a flanker pop up on my right on RWR, and someone has pushed me. Now in something like the Rafale, you can just back yourself to win this. Now remember, there's no RWR warning there, it's a more warning, so make sure you do your scroll wheel flare there. Same again, this is another IR missile, so I'm just pulling my scroll wheel back to put a flurry of flares in the air, and I deal with those no problem, and a Meeker, as always, is going to pull in very nicely on that range. Notice how I kept myself sort of 90 degrees to him, and then you can use your HMD to get a nice high off-ball launch off, and you don't have to leave your defensive posture that much. I'm actually going to pause it here in this joust with this Gripen as well, because whilst this is a clip from before the recent update, this sort of thing could happen before the update. It was less common, right? It's much more common now. This is something you have to deal with a lot more. You see this missile on my left, I'm in the notch, I've been putting chaff out, but the missile's not been biting on the chaff. Now, if you're confident that you did hit the notch angle and it's not gone for your chaff, you can also be confident that the missile is probably in inertial guidance right now. So it's very important, and what you can see when I play the clip is I pitch up over the missile, because the missile isn't actually tracking me, it's just tracking my last known trajectory. So as long as you change your course, you can just roll up or roll down and get under or over the missile's trajectory. So you see, because I pitched up slightly, the missile keeps going down, I go up, I get the high off-ball launch, I'm still in a defensive posture, that Gripen went too head on, he doesn't have enough time to get around into the notch. Again, I see the missiles on inertial guidance, so I make sure I just pitch up a bit, slow down a bit, and just get over the missile and just outside of its course. I'm going to cut ahead briefly. I'm going to do that a few times in this video just to reduce some of the downtime, because it could get quite long with the amount of clips I have, so I want to try and reduce that. Now I'm just trying to abuse that nice top-down position I like to get into. You know, I've done my fighting for the altitude, now I want to drop in. However, I need to be careful about my approach, because this is before the update. I only had 6 Meekers, and I've now used them all, so I'm going to have to rely on my gun. So I'm going to use this cloud to kind of mask my approach, and I want to kind of drop in behind them is my plan here. So I'm just going to come in on their tails through the clouds, and then you're going to see as I pop out, they start popping up on the spotting mechanic. This guy seems to be aware of me because he starts turning in. Stealth rounds on the Rafale, so I get the radar lock for the gun sight. Just being patient there, just lining up the target reticule with his flight path, and then just take the shot, and he's shortly going to die. Jump into the next game, and this will be my second clip from before the update, and this is also a comment on, you know, how I'm playing the Rafale, because that's pretty much the same before and after the update. This isn't one where I like to climb super high, because with the short range of your Meekers you can't contend with the Eurofighters really. So my objective is here is to come in below contrail height and try and get as close as I can before start engaging. Look out for people like that. I saw the missile diamond, so I knew to pull in someone close. You know, I'm gonna be engaging anyone who gets too close to me basically, and then I'm happy to just defend any long range launches. Again, they're not much of a threat as long as you just pay attention to it, just be patient, don't panic. And then now I see that contrail up high. He's within sort of 20 kilometers now, so he's within sort of my sort of kill box, if you like. Notice the J10's taken my tail. Don't panic in these situations, especially at the start. I'm still near my team, so I just maintain my defensive posture. I don't pull aggressively into the merge because I don't want to lose my speed this early in the match. And I'm just going to extend back towards my team. He was too aggressive there. He's on the, our side of the map, and he's going to get taken out by one of my team just as a 9M gets fired at me from behind. Just going to pause it here. So people often ask about flaring IRCCM missiles. I touched on that in the Typhoon video with how I deal with field of view seekers with the scroll wheel flaring. 9Ms are a little bit different, and I'm going to be honest here, I'm not super good at flaring 9Ms. However, I have been practicing a bit recently. I'm a little bit better, but I will offer you some advice here. For this example, it's a rear aspect shot. I know I've got no, missile warning on my RWR, so I know this isn't an AMRAAM. I know it is a 9LI in the case of the F4F, but, same seeker as the 9M. So what I've done here is my flares are upward shooting, so I'm just trying to point my flares into the field of view of the seeker, and then while I do that, it's going to suspend its seeker. It's essentially going to move to inertial guidance. And then while the flares are clouding its view, I'm going to pull up out of my original course, and the missile is going to fly harmlessly below me. So you see, as I pull up here, the missile fails to track me upwards because the seeker's been suspended because it sees the flares. That's kind of how tracking suspension works. Cut ahead to the last part of that match, and this is one of the few dogfights I had while I was playing the Rafale. Dogfight's super rare in top tier, probably the weakest part of my game. But it does happen occasionally, and against most people in AirRB, if you have a rough idea of what you're doing, you will win most of the time. I pull very aggressively into this merge, and he doesn't really. You'll find a lot of people are quite tentative when it comes to dogfights. You see, he decided to actually turn in aggressively quite late when I've already cut inside his circle, so he kind of just gave me his tail in this. I missed the first shot. Just as I pull up here, I cut my throttle a bit just to solidify my position, get a crit, loop back over, and I'm just firmly planted his tail at this point, shave his wing off, and it's all over. Now I'm going to move into some post-update gameplay, and I'm going to make the focus on notching now. Now this is a long-range launch early in this match, and this one, because I'm flying below contrail and it's probably come from, it's like an AMRAAM up high, it's going to be top down, so this isn't really much different to before the update. In these cases the missile would usually be switching to inertial guidance anyway. So you see, as I notched and chaffed, I pulled down and the missile warning has gone away already. But let's see what actually happened there in sensor view. So we start out here, the missile's in its usual normal initial phase of inertial guidance and data link before it gets to terminal range. I get the RWR warning once it starts tracking me. I know from the signal strength indication it's not too close to the sensor that I've got a lot of time, and I'm just going to casually move around to the notch, and I'm just going to pause it here. So the launching aircraft in this case did not keep his lock, so that's why it switched to inertial guidance and not inertial guidance plus data link. And this shot would look exactly the same before the update. The new update isn't affecting a missile like this, because this missile has switched to inertial guidance, regardless of any of the new mechanics. And this is because, it's in sort of a look down mode, so it wants to go to inertial guidance plus data link. Now, it's only got inertial guidance, so you're going to see here what I do after I hit the notch is I'm going to start pitching down, and you're going to see how the grey seeker cone, that's the inertial guidance where it's looking, I just gradually pull away from it. When the missile eventually does try and track something, all it sees is the chaff that I've left on my tail. Right, now I want to show you a comparison. So this first clip here is a notch just before the update. So you can see as I'm pulling into the notch and putting my chaff, you see how the missile bites on the chaff and diverts to, the chaff beyond my tail. I'm then going to fire again. He's going to get quite unlucky here because his missile's going to proxy on mine. It takes out his missile, mine still goes through and kills him, so that's pretty unlucky on his part. And now let's switch to a notch after the update. So here in this clip, first up I'm going to turn in as I get the RWR warnings for a Eurofighter on my right, and I'm going to get the high off-bore launch. and I'm going to go into notching this missile. Now watch this one, how you see it doesn't bite on chaff, but it still continues on an inertial guidance trajectory, so I just pull up out of its way. Let's have a quick look in sensor view after I just wrap up this kill. So while you're watching this notch in sensor view, just look how when I notch and chaff the missile sees the chaff but it's not interested, kind of like how a 9M works, so I need to make sure I pull up out of the trajectory because it switches to inertial guidance. Got another clip now of the same thing later on in that same game. I'm just going to take this Mika shot on this Eurofighter, and while I'm shooting at him I don't pay attention to the F-15 warning ahead of me, and as he fires I'm just going to pause it again. Now while you're watching this notch, just remember how it worked before the update, where you'd see me notch, I'd pull through the notch just like I'm starting to do here, start dropping chaff, and then the missile would divert the chaff off your tail, and you could just turn on sort of the same horizontal plane, if that makes sense. Now after you turn into the notch and you drop your chaff, it's very important that you either pitch up or down once you've found the notch angle, and try to maintain the notch angle while you do that to make sure the missile doesn't switch its seeker back on and track you again. So I'll let it play now and just watch how I pull through the notch, I hit my chaff, I check that I've hit the angle, and then I start pitching up, and you see how the missile just harmlessly floats below me. It's on inertial guidance right there, it's not actually tracking me, so just make sure that you change your trajectory and you should be fine. Another good scenario here, this time at high altitude. So I said earlier that I usually play the Rafale below contrail, but sometimes I do climb a bit higher when I want to get rid of the people above me, because at the end of the day I do want to contest them. I don't want them to be up here for free. Like Eurofighters and F-15s at altitude left uncontested pose a significant threat. Fire at that guy who's running away from me because he is within the MAR, and just as I thought, it forces him to recommit, and as that happens I've got an F-15 that snuck up on my tail. As I notch this, again watch how once I get into the angle and drop my chaff, I pull up and out of the inertial guidance. Now I'm going for the high off-bore Mika, but because of the altitude it actually doesn't manage to pull in for a change. The F-15 going quite fast probably as well, so he actually manages to get past the missile before it can pull in. Now it's an F-15, so I know I should be able to cut inside his circle, so I go for the aggressive turn here. I pitch my nose down and try and cut inside his circle. I manage to do that, I get the Mika, and then I'm immediately going into my defensive posture in case he fires back, but he doesn't get the chance and I get that kill. So during that dogfight I saw that the other guy I fired on, the F-16, also died, so I know he's not, looking at me anymore. He's gone, he's back to the hangar. So I'm now just assessing my situation again. I see the RWR ping on my right, I look up at the clouds, I see the contrail. I'm using HMD now because I know I'm going to want a quick launch because it looks like he's pushing into me. I get the quick launch and I'm right back into my defensive posture. That one does go for my chaff, so you will see that sometimes the missiles do divert to chaff like they used to, but it's a lot less consistent. If it happens, great, just be prepared for the fact that it might not a lot of the time. But in that case I don't need to change my trajectory. So coming into another game now, and again I've come in just below contrail height. Again, I'm trying to avoid detection as best I can. I still want to contest the altitude, but in the Rafale with the Mikas is you want to get up close to maximize your capabilities. If you do get the AMRAAMs at the start, as I usually say, just defend them and then recommit. At most 1 or 2 people will contest you, but if they do push you, remember you're on a Rafale, take those high off-bore launches. You don't have to leave your defensive posture much to fire in a plane like the Rafale, much like the Mirage 2000. Think of it like a Mirage 2000, just with kind of better everything. So as I'm tracking this guy running away from me, I see that contrail getting quite close, so I quickly switch to the HMD to fire at him, and this is the perfect position to be in. People are often not prepared for you firing up from below them like that quite close. He was not aware. He decides to commit to get counterfire off, but he's going to sacrifice himself in the process, and I can simply move into the notch. Once I get into the notch and drop my chaff again, see how I pull up over the inertial guidance of the missile, and I get quite an easy kill there. And just briefly we see the F-15 that I also fired at there pop up in the kill feed as well. Gonna keep rattling through some notching examples now. I've got quite a lot of these clips, so I thought, it seems the most on topic thing to talk about a lot in this video. So here I'm using my TWS and keeping it right on the edge of my screen. I'm just looking for these people pushing in on my right over the mountain ridge. Get the missile off on that guy who I pick up on TWS.
I'm just doing a squad ping there because I was playing with a friend at the time, just let him know he's there. And you see, as I go to notch this missile, I'm initially thinking about pulling up over it, but it looks like it's tracking me, so I just negged you a bit, and you see how it just stays on its inertial guidance path and just flies over my plane. I didn't have to change my course much there, and I still avoided the missile.
Next clip now, I've just come into a cluster of enemies that are pushing down on my team, but because I've offset and come in at an off angle at a different altitude, I've managed to get the drop on them. So you're going to see me rattle off a bunch of HMD launches here, just on the targets as they pop up. Look for the missile diamonds to identify where people are if they're not spotted. The J-10 is going to fire back, and you see the missile follows my downward trajectory. I'm in the notch, I chaff, I pitch up a bit, and the missile harmlessly floats below me on inertial guidance. Next clip here, I want to talk about how you're recommitting on someone who pops up not in front of you, basically. So here I'm just tracking this Eurofighter ahead of me when an F-15 pops up on my RWR, and I'm just going to pause it now. So what you notice here is I've got the F-15 in my RWR, so I know he's potentially pushing in on me on my right, but I can't, when I pan my camera around, I can't immediately see where he is, so I don't know how far he is, and I don't know exactly where to point my HMD if I want to recommit like that. So instead, I've placed my TWS right on the edge of my screen, and then I'm going to turn in and let the scan sweep of my TWS go along the rough area where he should be, and once it gets the lock, I can then use that lock to launch my missile and then go back into my notch in case he fires back. So as I play the clip, you'll see the TWS picks up the lock, I use that to launch, and then to fire on this Eurofighter that's turned into me now, I quickly switch to HMD because I know where he is. I don't need to use my TWS to search for him for the lock. I can immediately just point my cursor where he is. I defend the launch from the F-15, and as I'm doing that, I'm going to see the Eurofighter does get a missile off just before he dies. Don't panic, just pull into your notch. You're in a Rafale, it pulls around very handily even at Mach 1.1 there. A little bit fortunate there, it bites on the chaff, but if it hadn't, all I need to do once I've hit the notch, as I've said before, is just change my trajectory and the missile won't hit me. For the last few clips, I want to talk about some more 9M flaring, which I touched on at the start, but this time from side-on aspect. As I fire and I level my wings out as he fires at me, I'm just going to pause it. So in these situations, I'm usually already going side-on because I want to be ready to defend any radar missiles fired at me, so I'm already in the notch. Problem is this makes 9Ms a bit harder to flare than if they were, say, head-on. So this situation can happen if you're quite close range. We know it's a 9M, especially because there's no missile warning on the RWR, so there's no radar signal coming from it. With the side-on 9M, one method you could do, which you're going to see me do here, is I'm going to pitch up, lead the missile up with me, and then at the apex of my barrel roll, I'm going to put a load of flares in the air to turn off, trigger the tracking suspension on the seeker, and then pitch down, so hopefully you should see the missile floats over you on IOG whilst you're pitching down out of the way. As I complete that flare, we get a missile in for the F-16. That missile bites on the chaff, so I know I can immediately recommit, get the nice high off-bore Mika, and he's going back to the hangar. Another one now here from an F-16, just going to pause it again now as he launches the missile. Again, I have the track warning from the F-16, but I don't have a launch warning for a missile, so I know this is a 9M again. So once again, I'm going to pitch up, lead the missile up with me. As I reach the apex of my planned barrel roll, I'm going to put the flares in the air, make the seeker switch to IOG, and then pitch down, and it's just going to float over my plane. Okay, that's it for today. I appreciate this video was more about notching and some other defensive and offensive strategies rather than the Rafale specifically, but hopefully you can see from all those examples just how capable this airframe is. For me right now, this is the most fun plane at top tier AirRB, possibly the best, but that will depend on your preferred playstyle. I'll absolutely be doing more videos on the Rafale and the Eurofighter in the new year. As for what format those videos take, we shall see. I'll probably just be uploading some shorts over the holidays when I feel like it, honestly. My next long format video probably won't be for a week or so. The fast pace of the updates and the channel blowing up a bit has burnt me out a little making the videos, but don't worry, I just need to chill for a week and I'll be back. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you again next time.